Good evening. My name is Dr. Erin Freeland Ballantyne, and I am from Yellowknife. And tonight, I'm going to take all of you home with me to Denonday. So I'd like you to imagine that we're under the silvery brightness of the midnight sun, on the shores of a lake so pure that you can drink out of it. Fish that we caught earlier this day from a net is roasting on the fire, and the steam of Labrador tea with rose petals is wafting over our carpet of spruce boughs. Students and elder professors are in a passionate exchange. They're talking about the merits of consensus governance, women's leadership, and decolonization. Suddenly, down in the next space, screaming erupts, the blood-curdling scream of multiple children in total hysteria. Around the fire, we smile at each other, knowingly. See, my workplace is very special. I'm the Dean of Land-Based Education at Dechinta University. We're a land-based university rooted in Indigenous knowledge and values, and our mission is to train the next generation of leaders, researchers, and change makers to build healthy, sustainable, and self-determining communities. Now, I'm a settler. I'm a non-Indigenous person that comes from a mixed Indigenous and non-Indigenous family, and the people around the fire are university students. But they're not your typical university students. See, they're mostly Indigenous women from across the north and beyond, and the screaming kids down the lake are all of our kids, and they're at Kids U. When we built a post-secondary education program to remove barriers for Indigenous student success, the #1 barrier identified by students was the lack of affordable childcare and not wanting to remove your kids from their cultural context. So was born Kids U. It's an outdoor, culturally rooted K-12 learning adventure, deschooling, decolonizing education. And get this, kids decide what they want to learn about. So during this particular day, the kids had decided they wanted to make fish spears. They talked to their elder professors and learned about all different kinds of fish spears, how to make them, where to look for fish, what time of day. And we're sitting around the fire in university seminar, and we can hear the kids just screaming in the shallows because they had caught, with their spears and their bare feet, a gigantic 12-pound pike. We run proudly down the trail. They got the fish, and they looked at what it had eaten, learned Indigenous names for fish parts in 5 languages, and feasted. Through that child-led learning journey, they did math to measure spears, researched kinds of wood, spear design engineering, learned stories about fish habitat, biology, ecology, practiced leadership and decision-making, and handled large axes and knives. And we were once told that you can't have higher learning or education in the bush. For 7 years now, we've had university semesters in an off-grid community with participants ranging from 4 months to 93 years old. We've operated from -43 to +37, and for a long time we said the land is our most honored professor. But now I like to say that children on the land are our most honored professors. You see, kids ask the most difficult questions. They have a deeply intuitive sense of justice, and intergenerational learning in community on the land creates a fertile space for knowledge exchange and knowledge creation, indeed, Indigenous innovation. And when we think about necessary national systems change towards reconciliation, I'll let you in on a little secret. Kids and land are key. Now, when I was 24, I got a scholarship to study at Oxford, which is about as far away from Yellowknife as you can get. And 7 months into my scholarship, I found myself going to tell the warden of the Rhodes House, who was indeed a knight, that I was A, pregnant, and B, not quitting my scholarship, where there is a provision to take a year off for military service, but there is no such thing as maternity leave. Now, in the NWT, children are celebrated and loved, but in the UK, amongst grad students and professor, child was the death of tenure track. I was told by a wise professor, dear, an abortion would be much better for your career. So, with my mom, my dad, my family by my side, I started my PhD and gave birth at home 2 weeks later. I was the first woman Rhodes Scholar to have a baby while on stipend, and my daughter Uma turned 10 on Saturday, and she has been a fine teacher. Now, my daughter is a type 1 diabetic, and one day when she's 5, we're driving to school, and we're listening to CBC, and she says, "Mom, what do all the diabetic kids do in Syria when there's so much bombing they can't get their insulin?" And when I'm trying to find an answer, she starts crying in the back seat because she's found her own. And at 6, we're talking about the Oka crisis, and she sums it up like this. "Well, Mom, if I was the mayor of the town, I would just be like, sorry, you can't build a golf course on a graveyard." And when she's 8, she says, Why? Why is Auntie Avonlea, who's Dene, why is she 10 times more likely to go missing and murdered than Auntie Alex because she's white? See, I've learned from kids that being a leader starts with how you lead your life at home. And if there's not alignment between our values and our work, children don't have an example to follow that is deeply and intuitively truthful. Now, I don't know the answer to all my daughter's questions, but she knows that I'm looking, and she knows that I really care about her future. So the space opened up by the national talk of reconciliation challenges us to lead with our best selves. The opportunity of decolonization is to become the country we always dreamed we were, where the values we use to define ourselves, truth and freedom and inclusivity, resonate with everyone and are reflected in the reality of our institutions, our families, our relationships, and our communities. Caleb Ben says reconciliation is not for cowards, and it's not. It's for lovers and dreamers, because beyond some enlightened notion of reconciliation where somehow everything will be equal, there's a future of equity and beauty. Now in my life, I've felt the thundering of thousands of caribou migrating across the not-so-barren lands, and I've cried at my son's first hunt, when their first memory is harvesting moose, a species I never harvested until I was an adult because caribou were so abundant. I sent my first email in high school. My youngest son's birth was announced 7 months before he was born with a picture of his first ultrasound on Facebook. You see, things change fast. And right now we need fast change in our country. And we want authentic leadership. And to do that, I suggest that we look no further than our youth, our children, and our grandchildren. Because our job as young leaders and as leaders who are young at heart is to listen and learn from our youth who reflect back to us the kind of person we are and the kind of society we live in. At the heart of this movement is reconnecting to each other on the land and centering deeply in our lives the core value of interconnection and interdependence with humans, animals, land, water, all that is one. It's time to get outside together. This is a celebration of place as teacher, and where respect of Indigenous sovereignty is not something that is threatening, but something that makes us stronger together. It is a time where each of us is called to live in authentic leadership, in whatever context we put our energy into. For Canada 150, Dechinta will be steering 3 8-week river expeditions of Indigenous and non-Indigenous students, leaders, elders, faculty, artists, and families. And we're hoping to ignite conversations around the country where beyond reconciliation there is reciprocity and action. Spaces like this are critical, so we can talk, listen, share, and act, and we need more of them. At Dechinta, the land-based youth revolution is not just coming, it's here. Please join us. Akaitcho.